Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy. My guest today is Kelly Weger. Kelly, I met through, I approached her through a newsletter that I get for podcast hosts, podcast guests. And Kelly responded, which was so fun. Her bio just sounded really, really great. She is an author. She is a speaker. Her day job is in sustainability. She's the head of sustainability for a solar manufacturer. And she also uses a lot of humor, and that got my attention for sure. So, Kelly, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to learn from you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So, let's see. Humor is a coping mechanism. Let's start with that because, things are heavy.
Yeah. So sustainability has been my entire career in different ways. And it's an amazing, invigorating field to be in, but it can also be exhausting. And I've gone through phases where in the, broader world of sustainability, people were all about like, we need to shout up from the rooftops. We need to tell people we're killing the planet, blah, blah, blah. And at some point, thankfully, there were probably some psychological studies that learned, a great deal about human behavior, and we've recognized that fear is not the best motivator for long-term behavior change. And so, when
100%.
you're working in this, in this field, you have to find ways to cope with the fact that while good, amazing progress sometimes is happening, there are also times where we see us sliding back, or we see that the effort going in just isn't enough. It isn't keeping up with the pace of, the degradation. So yeah, humor is my favorite coping mechanism. It's a fantastic way to wake up every day feeling refreshed and ready to go back out and tackle the world's biggest problems.
Right. So I'm curious how, I always love to hear how people ended up in this field. And this has been your whole career, you said. So like what sort of pushed you toward sustainability? Because you are clearly you have a lot of skills that I'm sure could be used elsewhere. But you chose sustainability. So tell me about that. Like how did you end up choosing this?
I really can't say it was a choice per se. I've just always felt a very strong connection to nature and all the little creatures that we get to share this planet with. And, I actually have been thinking about this a lot recently, with Father's Day. And really, it was my father who, when I was 3 years old, at night, this was down in Oklahoma, and he'd go out and sit on the hood of the car and, watch a thunderstorm roll in and listen to the cicadas and the crickets. And I would just climb up on the hood with him and look at the stars. And yeah, I just had a really strong connection and awe for the
Right.
planet. So
And happy memories connected to, yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
so it was natural for me. I ended up getting my both of my degrees in architecture, and I specialized in sustainable design. So I was able to work with some really phenomenal professors and instructors who helped to guide my sustainability passion into a very functional channel with building design. And then round about the Great Recession, architecture was hit really hard. And I unexpectedly left architecture. But because I had all of this background and specialization in like LEED design and sustainability, I was able to just slide over into sustainability. And that was actually when I started working with renewable energy and energy efficiency programs for a nonprofit back then.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. And you're the poster child for things that I've talked to so many people about like finding awe, and because you have that connection to nature, you want to protect it. And so I love that story with your dad because that really shaped you and it
Absolutely.
propelled you into what you're doing. I love that. And so can we okay, so we touched on humor a little bit, but like how do you incorporate humor into this this heavy conversation?
Yeah, I think it's a great entry point. it doesn't seem like it should be, but sometimes sustainability can end up being politicized, and you never really know when you're starting a conversation with somebody where they fall on that spectrum. And being able to joke about things helps diffuse any tension that might already be there. So it's kind of a natural thing that I've learned a long time ago. I'm actually an introvert as well. And so humor is something that helps make me feel more comfortable when I have to talk to strangers. So it's a really nice bridge between the introvert and the extrovert world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been something that I used to teach a number of 4 and 8 hour workshops on different sustainability topics. And I'll tell you what, it can get, no matter how much you care about this, it can get boring when you're sitting in a classroom for 8 hours. So if I didn't have humor injected into it, I think we'd all be falling asleep. So yeah, it was also, that was an area where I think I was able to kind of hone my on my feet humor through doing these live workshop trainings. And then more recently, I published my book, How to Kill the Planet in 8 Easy Steps, which is, it started off honestly as my own coping mechanism to deal with a change in political leadership. And it felt like we were thrust into this upside down, topsy turvy, inside out world. And I was like, well, sure, I guess, what have I been doing all this time? Let's work harder at how to kill the planet. And it started out as a complete joke. And then my sustainability peers who got to read little snippets that I posted were like, we need this. If we don't laugh, we'll cry. And
For real.
we need we need something to laugh about, because honestly, it is so ridiculous, some of the things that have happened and some of the regressions that have happened with like environmental policies, that yeah, if we don't make fun of it, we'll just be sad.
Yep, for sure. Did you say you did not say the full name of the full title of the book, right?
It's How to Kill the Planet in 8 Easy Steps. And then it is a humorous guide by a satirical snarkitecht.
And I did not actually catch the fact that you had all that architecture experience in the past. So Snarkitecht just that
Yes.
makes it all the better. I
If you
love it.
know any architects, you probably know that they were put through a very brutal process of studio design work, where at the end of every semester, you would have to put your stuff up on the wall and present your idea, and then have a panel of judges basically critique you really harshly. So that's another reason why you had to learn to have some humor, because otherwise you were just going to cry. So
Right.
I also
Yeah.
think my architecture training, really helped with that too.
I did not know about that. That's really interesting. So I love that I just love the humor part of it, because it's so necessary. I know that we have conversations every single week, and sometimes they're deep and heavy and hard, and we need a break every so often. So
Absolutely. We all deserve a little levity.
I so appreciate that. Tell me about um this is a conversation that's come up personally a lot, with like, and obviously like politically, like renewable energy. And then you also added on solar recycling, which is something that I was telling you, it's come up a lot, because I love solar panels. I love solar power. And people talk crap about it because they're like, well, what happens in 25 years? And I'm always like, the you know, they're working on that. Like, this is not like we're just going to throw them away. I'm just not aware of how it's going to work. So I'm curious what Miss, in the business. But so can you expand on that a little bit, on either of those or both of those?
Yeah, absolutely. It is an interesting area. So when I left architecture, I worked for a nonprofit where we headed up a renewable energy and energy efficiency program for schools. So that was when I first really learned a lot about wind and solar. After that, I did some other things. I actually did manufacturing sustainability consulting for about a decade. And then I came back to solar about 3.5 years ago to work for the company that I'm with now. And a lot changed between, 2009 and 3.5 years ago.
For
So
sure.
I had to refresh my knowledge. And, one of the good things that I learned is that the solar recycling industry, which was virtually non-existent in 2009, and it's still in its nascency, but we have a whole lot of history over in Europe where they have been doing this recycling for a long time. It's been happening in the US. I would say about 5 years ago is when it really started to kind of ramp up, because we finally had infrastructure that was getting old enough that we needed to have a
Hmm.
developed industry for this. But today, the good news is it's not hard to recycle solar panels. It's about 90 to 95% recyclable. There's still, some little like plastic bits and stuff that you could do like waste to energy or whatever. But, it's primarily metal and glass. That's the majority of the weight. And so those are things that already have established recycling industries. The other bits, there's, little bits of silver and gold and things that are in the wafers themselves, which can now be extracted through a couple of different processes. But the big thing is, the process for recycling solar has been around for a long time. The barrier actually was the cost. And it's that chicken
Right.
or the egg, supply and demand thing. Now that we have so much solar being deployed in the US, there
Yeah.
is more demand, which means you have the volume, and, you can scale the cost down once you have that larger volume. So
Ooh,
yeah, there's recycling available in every state at this point, and it is something that is not hard to do. And the cost has come down. I'd say it's about 50% what it was 5 years ago. So it just keeps
amazing.
getting lower and lower, which is great.
Yeah. Okay. So you said every state has a recycling program for them? That's really cool.
Yeah,
So I
not
mean
necessarily
it's
like a,
the
a
the
government
company
run
that's
program.
installing that will figure that out, right?
It depends. So solar can need recycling at various parts of the life cycle. So we tend to think at retirement, 25 years from now, these solar panels that I'm putting on my roof today, I'm going to have to figure out who can recycle them then. But
Right.
also, if you think about the large, fields of solar panels that you see when they're getting shipped, when they're getting installed, if there's a tornado, there are lots of ways where they can be broken and they have to be recycled long before that 25 years.
Yeah.
So that is probably the big chunk of what is being recycled today is actually damaged panels. And
Yeah.
then at the end of life, we'll see a wave of older models coming in that
For
are
sure.
able to then be recycled with the current technology.
Okay. I'm curious what you know about the plug-in solar. I keep hearing about that and I'm like, ooh, that's very intriguing.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the plug-in solar. I know that there are some states and like, there's a lot of policy talk about all sorts of different things. So there are some states where they are really anti plug-in solar. Obviously the advantage is that I think it makes it a lot more accessible to people regardless of economic status. Anybody can, if you got a balcony, you can plug in one solar panel and set it out there in the sunshine and get a little bit of,
Offset. Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's awesome, potential there. I think we're still working through utilities and every state's electricity, management program is totally different. So it
Hmm.
really is a state by state kind of conversation.
Right. um, and what was the other question? So also about solar, is there is there a potential for making them not so breakable?
The interesting balance with solar is, on the one hand, you want them to last 25 years, right? So we need them to be very, very durable. On the other hand, you want them to be able to be separated back into their different materials whenever they do need to be recycled. And those two are in direct, conflict. So we can design them to be durable enough to withstand all sorts of insane amounts of hail, tornadoes, hurricanes, but
Trees?
there's a
Yeah.
turning point, a tipping point where it doesn't make sense anymore, because then at the end of the life, you're stuck with these panels that are like super glued together and there's nothing separating them apart, which I always think of Bill McKibben or Bill McDonough and Bill McKibben wrote this book a long, long time ago called Cradle to Cradle, which changed my entire perspective on how we think about products. Every single time we, touch a product, somebody designed it. And did they think about end of life design? And they coined this phrase, monstrous hybrids. So, aluminum can,
Mm-hmm.
it's just an aluminum can, super easy to recycle. It goes, 98% back into another
Right.
aluminum can, easy peasy. You think about something like one of those rectangular boxes of soup that's shelf stable in a Tetra Pak. That's a monstrous hybrid. You've got plastic, you've got metal, you've got, paper.
Yeah.
All of this is just so
Right.
laminated together. You'll never separate them into individual material streams. And
Right.
that's one of the challenges from a design perspective.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I've talked about those boxes a lot because they're like you can't recycle them, you can't compost them. They're just like they're trash bound for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um and what's the alternative is getting it in a can, which I food in a can is um such a weird situation in my mind because I don't want it to taste like the metal. And I know sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. I don't know about broth. I've never bought broth in a like broth or soup in a can. Well, I bought soup in a can, of course, but anyway, that's fascinating. It's such an interesting point to make about all the different parts. And I'm sure that's why, people are like, what are we going to do about them? Like there's all these like chips and whatever, all the little bits. Um, and they're heavy.
Yes.
But I know
And that's
that
the other, factor is people are installing these panels. And when you talk about residential scale, their panels are smaller. When you talk about utility scale, these are massive panels, like taller than me. And the thicker the glass, obviously the more durable it is, but also the heavier it is. And so that is one of the things combined with over 90% of all solar panels actually come from China. So when you think about that weight and that you're shipping these overseas, the carbon emissions from all of that transportation gets increased when you have heavier products. So finding something that's locally made, lighter weight, is always beneficial from a carbon emissions perspective.
yeah. I mean, so you said 90% or 90%. Where 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 else do they come from? Is there a US manufacturer?
Yeah. Q Cells manufactures them here in Georgia. And there are a couple other assembly plants in the US, but yeah, most of them are coming from overseas.
Q Cells, is that where you're working? Interesting. Interesting. That's cool. So basically they're in Georgia and China
They come from other countries too, but there's
mostly.
also a little bit of a shell game where companies will like start up a new plant in Malaysia or, India or wherever to claim that they're not coming from China, but everything is coming through China and then they're just doing the final assembly there.
Right. Oh my goodness. Sorry to bend your ear about solar, but I know you're working with them. So and you're the sustainability person, the head of sustainability for that company. And so I just think that's really fascinating. I really think that there's so many questions, sometimes I feel like people people, kind of blindly go in like, no, solar is clean and it's really good and we need to just do it, not really understanding all the parts about that, like the background stuff. And so it's just really interesting to hear that.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that this point is clear. I'm definitely not saying solar is bad carbon wise. Everything to manufacture takes carbon emissions. But when you actually do the calculations where you do a life cycle assessment and you look at raw material extraction from the mine, shipping, all the different steps in production to the final product, and then getting that to wherever it's going to get installed, you can calculate all of the carbon emissions for one solar panel. And that carbon payback, if you will, we talk a lot about monetary payback, like we're going to invest in this and it's going to have a 2-year payback. We'll have made all of the cost savings that will pay for the investment that we did. There's also a carbon payback. And so with solar panels, I would say across the board, it's generally going to be right around a year where the carbon emissions that are embodied in that in that product will be offset by the emissions from the clean energy that it produces in its, use phase.
For sure. For sure. And it lasts at least 25 years, which is very cool. So you got 24 years of like super low
Carbon
emissions.
free.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to like dwell on solar, even though I'm like completely entranced by all of this, but because there's so much more to you, I want to hear what. So you had mentioned like behavioral changes or behavior changes, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, because I mean I have my own ideas, but I'm just curious.
In regards to like individuals making changes in their lifestyle to be more sustainable, or
I think so.
yeah, I think it's I actually think human psychology is absolutely fascinating. I love trying to pick apart like the reasons why we do the things that we do, and it's so much embedded stuff in our background and our upbringing. And,
Right.
I think the most important thing is anybody is capable of choosing a different option, but it has to be affordable. It has to be convenient. And, those are the challenges. So, in my giant Rolodex of all the things that you could possibly do to, live more sustainably, you could rank them. Like, is this a beginner level one or is this an advanced level one? Because we're not going to tell somebody who's a beginner, like, go buy an EV, and that's first of all
Right.
very costly, and it has
Right.
other limitations and trade-offs that you have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit right now
Right.
with our technology. But finding easy things, and then it's just about developing new habits. Like one of my favorite super super easy practically free things is, hey, you're going out to a restaurant for dinner, literally just take a Tupperware. Just take a Tupperware, and when you're done, actually, I love it because I won't overeat. When I'm done eating and there's still food on my plate, I'm not going to just keep picking at it because it's there.
Until if you need something to bring it home, yes.
Yeah. So I'll just
Yep.
put it in my little container. And the fun part about that one is that people around you notice, like, did she just bring her own to-go container? And I never thought of that. But if you think about it, again, it's a tiny little thing, but that is a reusable product that I'm going to go through over and over and over again. And when you talk about like styrofoam is absolutely awful. Depending on, where you're dining out, they might have compostable to-go containers, which is much better, but
Right.
it still takes energy and carbon to make those products. So
Right.
yes, you can choose, better to-go containers, or you can choose one that's reusable and just bring your own. Like that's easy.
The one that you already have is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to riff on that a little bit, like even, pizza boxes, even though they're cardboard, they're recyclable, but they're not recyclable if they have the grease, right? Or sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, but it's just more complicated. Like, is this okay? Is this not okay? That type of thing. Although if you're bringing a whole pizza home, what kind of Tupperware fits that? But I love that whole idea. I've been following the Habits of Waste Changers on Instagram, and they so it comes up, like it shows up as how changers, and Sheila, the founder of that company, I think she's the founder. She started out with like used crayons and like collecting used crayons that were dull and melting them and creating new ones, or using them for other things. But then she's also worked with in California to have like the DoorDash and the restaurants ask if you want the plastic cutlery
Yeah,
instead of like, this is a really big deal.
it is.
Do you want the plastic cutlery, or are you eating at home? Like, if, or do you have your own? Because them giving that to you automatically just creates landfill waste
Well, and it's
because
also more expensive for the restaurant because they have to keep buying this stuff to give
right.
away.
Right.
So
And so
it should be
yeah,
obvious for them to save money by asking before they give it in.
right. Right. And it really inspired me to think more thoroughly about that. Like, and I'm not one that eats out a lot. I don't think I eat out a lot, but I'm so out of practice because I didn't eat out for 2 years. Um that I don't think to ask that.
Mhm.
And whenever I get them, I'm like, oof. But even like straws I've become really good at. I just don't accept the straws. But also, I mean, I feel like there are some restaurants that will ask you, would you like a straw with that? And then you say
Yeah.
no. But then if they just plop it on the table, you're like, "Ooh, you're going to take that back, right? And not throw it away." So, just the little bits about that I think are so, the little things become really big things and they add up. And I think that when you're talking about like behavior changes, like I sort of think about that. And it's actually a really big behavior change that a lot of us um, can think about. I feel like, they had to like petition these companies and restaurants and stuff to get them to ask. And I feel like that's something that, that's like not a political thing, but just like an activist thing to
Mhm.
do, that we can do that in our own areas. And
Well,
like,
and you can do that. I mean, a great example, I live in Indianapolis. We have new restaurants opening all the time. Whenever a new restaurant opens in our neighborhood, we go in there and we ask them, "What is your to-go container made out of?" And if it's styrofoam, we try to very kindly tell them, "You should consider the compostable. That would be really great." We know our community. We know that we have a lot of neighbors that value that, and
right,
they would, it's one of those little things in the back of your brain that when you notice it, you're like, no, I don't want to go to that restaurant. They use styrofoam and I just don't want to deal with it. Let's go to the other one.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that these things they seem very little, but they really add up. And I think that's when you talk about behavior changes, like it's not this like moving a mountain, but it really adds up. And when you were saying that you bring your own container to restaurants, that really gets attention.
Hmm.
Like I feel like it's such a great example to show to other customers.
Yeah. And I've had people, strangers, like literally come over to our table and ask about it. So it's a little tiny form of activism that, helps people to go, "Oh, I never
Oh,
thought
yeah.
about doing that." Like everybody at this point knows about the reusable grocery bags, whether they remember to put them in their car or not, that's a different story. But yeah, there's lots of little things like that. I also speak at a lot of conferences, and so I have my little bag with my reusable spork and my reusable straw and my little, you know, silver infused napkin. And it's fantastic. Even when
Silver infused?
yeah, it makes it antimicrobial. You just
Oh,
get it wet with water and it helps disinfect. So,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. So I could be at a conference full of sustainability people and, everyone kind of will think, well, there's lunch provided. Like that's the event planner's job that they should be getting this right. It's like, you know what? Yes, they should. But if they don't, I have my backup plan and I will demonstrate that I'm really, committed to this. I came prepared. Now, are there times where I forget? Of course. But
Yeah.
every time I remember and I am able to avoid that disposable stuff, it's that one little tiny victory for planet Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that also goes into, behavior changes, and one of the other things that you were talking about maybe before we hit record, but like it doesn't have to be this momentous thing. Like, and we're not like all or nothing sustainable.
Yes. Yes.
Um we just need to, we can do as much as we can. We can do our best. We might mess up, and that's okay. Like we're trying, and that's better than not trying.
Yeah. I recently spoke on a panel about energy in Indiana, and it was me representing solar. There was somebody else representing small scale nuclear reactors. And then there was somebody else who was representing kind of like a broader nonprofit for clean energy. And it was a very interesting discussion. But at one point, somebody afterwards at lunch was asking me about my book and was saying, "So, what does your book say about nuclear?" It was definitely, I could tell it was somebody who was wanting to trap me in a corner. I was like, it's both good and bad. I mean,
Right.
right? Everything is a discussion and a balance and a choice. And the right choice today in this location is not the right choice, 3 years from now in another location.
Right.
But we we have to give ourselves grace. We have to understand that nobody is perfect. Nobody is like, I've done 100% of the things I can do to be more sustainable. No, my motto is always know better, do better. Like,
Yeah.
learn something new. Cool. Now I can apply it and incorporate it into my life. Am I going to fail at first? Yes, I'm going to falter. I'm human. But eventually, if you're, trying to really make that behavior change, you just work it in, and it can take time. It can take years, but it's
It's
continuing toward,
progress.
yeah, just trying to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you were talking. When you mentioned that somebody was asking you about what your book says about nuclear, I was like, is nuclear even in your book? Wow, you actually touched on it. Amazing. I was talking to just last week, my friend Alexa, who was on the podcast talking about composting, and one of the things she's right now fired up about incinerators because she lives in Florida and they are trying to deal with their trash in a different way. And in I think the fact that they don't have trash lying around, like piles of trash, is pretty cool, but burning, like, whew, that that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm guessing landfills don't work quite as well in swampland.
Yeah. Yeah, so she's fighting for to stop that, but we'll see. I mean, she's also in Florida. Uh okay. I mean, so I would love to hear more about the book if you care to elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure. Yeah. So, How to Kill the Planet in 8 Easy Steps. Each chapter starts out with a very awesome illustration done by this illustrator, Laura Missielli from Italy. And it was so much fun. She has this beautiful, like, dark humor aesthetic to her artwork. And so I would give her, a synopsis of what that chapter was about. So, there's a chapter about like how we move. Are we biking? Are we walking? Are we, what vehicles are we driving? And understanding the implications. So the book is infused with actual facts and actual little tidbits in a tongue-in-cheek kind of reverse psychology way, right? So even if you literally picked this up and thought, yeah, I want to destroy the planet, let's do it, you would be
Yeah.
reading through and you would obviously be learning new things and like, oh, I didn't realize that has that big of an impact. So it's like, hiding your veggies underneath the rice. It's infused in there.
Right. Okay, that's fun. I mean, and the sort of dark humor, I think of like a cartoon, like almost like a political cartoon.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
it's a lot of fun. And figuring out how to split the book up was really interesting because I wrote the book over 8 years. I was very into it for the first, 3-ish years. And then I thought, I don't know. I think we're out of the danger zone. We don't need this book anymore. We're safe. And I kind of just put it up on the shelf for a while. And then events changed. And I said, okay, well, I guess this book is required. We need to get this message out into the world. So I picked it back up with fresh eyes and, kind of reanalyzed how it was laid out. And one of the chapters that was not in there originally that I ended up completely adding is on our digital footprint. And
mhm.
boy, even just in the last year since I
Right.
published the book, so much has changed. Like everyone and their mother knows about data centers, but everyone's talking about them, but nobody's talking about why are we building data centers?
Yes, please.
And it's our digital footprint. Again, it gets back to behavior change. My 10,000 photos of my dog are the problem. And, there's so many different things. But yeah, that was a really interesting late addition to the book. And I think probably one of the most important ones. Everybody understands a little bit about, energy efficiency and, things that you can do that are more commonly discussed. But how do you clean out your electronic files? It's like the worst closet or basement or garage in the world that nobody ever wants to touch. And there's so much junk, just junk that's sitting out there in these data centers because we
Yes.
didn't delete the stuff that we don't need anymore.
Oh my gosh. Girl, I've been going through that. Like my phone storage has been 0 and I kept getting these notifications like your emails are going to start bouncing back.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, no, that's bad. Let's fix this." And so I'm like on my phone, on my computer, like delete all these things. And I was like, I don't like it's still not making a difference. And so I found out last week that every single trip I take that I'm using Google Maps, they're storing all that. So I had to go in and delete every one. I'm like, why do they even need that?
Data.
Oh my gosh. And, like every podcast that I listen to that's like stored, I had to somebody was like, you got to clear your cache. And I'm like, where is the cache? Like, how do I do that? And so we finally figured it out, but I was like, ooh, it's not easy.
It's not easy. And, I kind of think of it like we had this migration from, let's talk about music. We had this migration from like, I own a physical CD. This is my music. That's my copy. I'm responsible for it. And at some point when I decide I don't need it anymore, it's my job to donate it or, whatever, recycle it if it's scratched.
Yeah.
And
digitally, it's not.
Yeah. Well, we've evolved to, this sort of streaming version for, a lot of people. There's obviously still both, but now it's like, well, I don't own that. It's not being stored on my laptop. I mean, I used to have a iPod and all that stuff. And so now everything's on the cloud. And so it feels more disconnected. And I think it's easy to just not even realize all this stuff that's out there that's your responsibility because you put it up on the cloud. And if you never go up and delete it, and I have done the deleting, I have had those notifications. I love taking photos. I take a billion pictures and it's brutal. Earlier this year, I went through into my iCloud and I deleted thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures. And it was tedious, but
It was sad, I'm sure. Although when I was going through them, there were so many that were like such bad quality because they were an older generational phone. I don't know what you call it, but older technology, I guess. And I was like, what even is that?
I don't need a blurry picture of the cat I had when I was a kid. Really, I don't.
Yes. I still need to do that, but I deleted 70,000 text threads.
Yeah.
So sad.
I wish it was easier to set up your defaults, just like on your laptop, how you can kind of be like, here are my power settings. These are the parameters. After 5 minutes, I want you to go to sleep. There should be a mechanism for phones so that you can say, hey, you know what? Any photo that's older than 12 months, that's not favorited, get it gone. Or like an easier way to eliminate duplicates or, there have been some improvements on that, but I think there's still a long ways to go. And meanwhile, when you exceed your storage and then Apple's like, for $2.99 a month, I can solve this problem for you.
Right.
It's convenient, it's easy, and it's relatively cheap. So I think a lot of people just click.
Suck it up. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I did because I was like, I can't figure this out. So when one of the things is photos, like when I take a picture on my phone, it sticks on my phone app and then or my camera app and also goes to Google Photos. But
Mm.
because I have like a personal Gmail account and a business Gmail account, which I'm working on switching out, um, my Google Photos are duplicated. So I'm like
Oh.
double storage and it's so maddening. Like I literally like I went to Verizon because they're right in town and I'm like, can you help me with these settings? And they're like, oh, well it's it's an Apple phone. You should go to the Apple store. And so I went to the Apple store and they're like, it's a Google thing. You gotta talk to Google. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna call Google up. Sure. Oh my God. And so still like I have not figured that out.
Yeah, it's a pain. It is definitely a pain. And
Anyway,
those are the things, right? Like we make choices. Nobody's perfect, but the digital footprint we absolutely have to think about. And because this is such a new thing, and even the concept of a digital footprint is so new, we're still learning. We're all
yeah.
still learning. And I think this data center conversation, I'm hoping, will really open up people's minds a little bit because, I totally get it. There's something that's new and fun and people want to play with it. But do you really need an AI generated version of yourself for your profile picture on social media? Or would a real photo suffice? I mean, when we talk about the ways that AI has capabilities that are massively beneficial for like medical purposes or
Right.
engineering
It's
purposes, there are
very
some
different.
very, very valid uses for
Yep.
AI. And then there's the frivolous usage. And that's where I think we need to start learning and understanding, even like a Google search versus a search using AI. The AI search uses 10 times more electricity, 10 times. That's the fundamental reason why we have all these data centers wanting to pop up.
That's crazy pants. Yeah. And so the education part is it feels like the tricky part with that. Like, because it is new, because it is exciting, because everyone else is doing it. Like, how do you explain to somebody, and I don't want to say that they're wrong, but like, do you really, and then, the whole like when everyone was making this Barbie whatever, I was
I
like,
already
are
forgot
you
about
kidding
it.
me? Are you kidding me? Um, but I just like, I feel like there are so many people that are just in denial about it. And I don't want to be very preachy about it, but just like, it's fun and what's it hurting? Talk to the people downstream of the data centers, okay? But it's not, it's not affecting them physically, personally. So it's like out of sight, out of mind, I guess. Oh, it's just like it's on my mind 24/7 right now. And it's sort of maddening, sort of, frustrating, mind-boggling. I can't really like I feel like we need a sort of a team of people that will sort of tackle that because no one seems to be really. How do we reach people, Kelly?
I mean, honestly, conversations just like this. I have had this conversation so many times over, lunch at a conference or, hanging out with a group at a networking event. And genuinely, people don't know. They don't understand how much more energy it is to do something with AI versus just, an old school Google.
Mm.
And when you suddenly have all of this conversation about data centers, most of which is very valid, some of it's overblown, like anything on the internet, you get people who start spreading rumors or myths or misinformation, and things sound a little bit crazier than they are in reality.
Mhm.
But I, as a sustainability professional of whatever, 20 some years, um, I am actually very, very concerned about our wide use of AI because the amount of energy load if you look at all of the electricity that gets consumed in the United States in 1 year, the amount of demand is increasing. And for so many years, we had all of these energy efficiency incentive programs across all the states, right? Everybody was doing such a good job. And what they were doing was trying to flatten the curve. They wanted
Right.
to say, we
Right.
don't want demand to increase because population is increasing, businesses are increasing. We are going to increase our consumption. But if we do all these energy efficiency measures, we can delay that. Now we've done all the energy efficiency measures, and all of a sudden, this AI boom is just, we're like undoing all of the savings that we did over the last
Right.
decade. And
I know.
it's
I'm thinking about like the energy saver appliances. Like it does so much good to have the energy saver appliances, but then
yeah,
we're doing this, and
yeah.
it's like,
Imagine being like, you know what? I went out and I got that Energy Star refrigerator. It's so good. And then 2 years later, you're like, I liked it so much, I bought 6 more. Wait, no, we don't need 6 Energy Star refrigerators. We just need one.
oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm gonna hoard them all. Oh my goodness. This is so fascinating. You are just a wealth, Kelly. Oh my gosh. I'm really enjoying this, and I cannot wait to get this book. And is there an audiobook option? Just curious.
There is not yet.
There
It's
is not.
something I've
Okay.
looked into.
I listen to podcasts anyway. I just need the book.
Well, I will say this. This is not a book that you like sit down and read for 8 hours. Think of it more like, do encyclopedias even exist anymore? Like, choose your own adventure. You get this book, flip it to any page and just read. You don't have to read anything in order. It is just little, tidbits of information and humor, and you'll have fun. So it's less intimidating than like, a novel.
Got it. Okay. So the future of climate change. Thoughts on that before we close up, right?
Well, I do believe that the AI boom that we're having currently is going to burst. We're going to have some of these companies that are going to go belly up, and we're going to consolidate into probably a few major players and start to use AI more strategically where it's really necessary.
Oh my gosh. From your mouth.
It's going to happen. Because money. It all comes down to money and profits. And, all these people are investing heavily in this right now, but they want a payback. And if that payback isn't there, then they're going to stop investing. We have, it's 2026. We have 3.5 years until 2030, which most companies have interim 2030 targets for carbon reductions.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. And there's a lot of conversation happening right now in the sustainability community, because with everything that's been going on in the US for last year and, globally, there are other areas that are kind of having a little bit of an identity crisis about where are we going and what are we committing to? When we get to 2030, we're going to really know, are we ever going to get to net zero by 2050?
If we're
Or
path.
yeah. And what happens is you do the easy stuff first, you do the cheap stuff first, and the closer you get to your net zero target, the more expensive options are left. And so really it's going to have to come down to money and companies willing to put their money where their mouths are. When they say that they're serious about sustainability and, impacting climate change, they have to spend the money. And a lot of them are. That is the one thing I will say this. When I was doing sustainability consulting for manufacturers, the first time we had an administration change where some of the rollbacks were happening on the environmental front, all of the companies that I was working with, nobody rolled back their initiatives. Nobody said, okay, we don't have to do this anymore. We're done, roll up the carpet. We don't have to do it.
Yeah.
No, everybody kept investing in their programs. They all understood that this is going to flip back, in 4 years, and nobody let off the gas pedal. So right now it's a little bit different. The impacts have been a lot worse in 2025 politically. And so we are seeing companies that are having to kind of reassess. A great example is Microsoft. We have a huge contract with them that's public information that they're buying tons and tons of solar panels from us. I think it's 12 gigawatts. Meanwhile, today, I just saw an article that Microsoft announced a 20-year agreement with Chevron
Oh,
to
frick.
get to have a supply of gas-powered electricity turbines for data centers. And I had a moment, and it's like, okay, well, on the one hand, they have been very serious and committed to finding renewable energy sources, but they can't keep up with the demand. And so now they're regressing, in my opinion, a little bit by, doing this other route. And
I feel like that's a trend with companies like that. I think I need to have conversations with you off recording. I have so many thoughts on that. But we're buying solar panels. We're off the hook, right?
Yeah. At the end of the day, companies exist because individual consumers make choices to either support them or not support them. And so while corporations have the most opportunity to make big impacts, I think it's important for individual, people, viewers, listeners to recognize your choices matter.
Yep.
Yeah. You have power. You may not think that you do, but you do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because their goal is money. And if we're not giving them money, if many people are not giving them money, they'll feel that.
Yep. I mean, that's why we've seen so many product boycotts, and some of them have been very effective because money talks.
Yeah, for sure. I want you guys to go back and listen to this part again, because we've said it so many times on the podcast, like, vote with your dollars. It really, really matters. Tell your friends, find people that are like-minded and talk about stuff like this, because boycotting matters. How, voting with your dollar is so, so important. I can't hear it enough. It just makes me feel so, it gives me so much empowerment to hear whenever someone says that, because I feel like I'm sort of painting myself in a corner right now. I'm not shopping with all these people. I feel like I just did this the other day. I was like, I don't shop on Amazon, and I'm okay. Like, I can do this. Like, I'm going to go to 5 stores instead of shop online and get it shipped to me. That's fine. I went for double-sided tape, and I went for silicone muffin pans, and I went to 5 stores, and I came away with neither of them. And I was so bummed. I was like, this is why we use Amazon. It's made me so mad.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, back to the, give yourself humility. Like, we're trying to do better. We're trying to make better choices. And sometimes we're successful, and sometimes it's easy and it's no big deal. And other times it's a big pain in the butt.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And it was so frustrating, but it also gave me a renewed effort to make sure that these local stores stay and that they carry things that we need. Anyway, I did not know where this was going to go. And I'm sorry that I bent your ear so much on the solar panels and on the digital the digital part, but these are questions that I've had personally, and things that have just been frustrating to me. So I'm so glad to have somebody that has all this experience. So thank you so much for being here, Kelly. Tell me, head of sustainability for a solar manufacturer, what does the word sustainability mean to you?
I love this question. It's such a broad subject, and a lot of people think I just deal with recycling.
Mm-hmm.
No. And I always tell people that if I'm doing my job right, I'm talking to people in every single department in my company, because every single department has choices that they make that they can make more sustainably. And ultimately, what it comes down to for me is, I'm a big fan of the, 1982 Brunswick definition, which is how do we provide for ourselves to have a quality life without compromising the ability of future generations to have the same standard of living? And that's what it comes down to for me is the world. We continue to add new people and we continue to grow the population, and we can't feed everybody if we don't use our resources in a sustainable manner. We really have to be cognizant of the fact that the planet is everything. Every single thing that we touch comes from this earth.
Right.
And we are so reliant on it. So we have to find a way to be better stewards of the planet.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Okay. Last question that I have. What is the best way for people to find you?
You can go to my website, which is kellyweger.weebly.com. Weebly, Weebly, and my name, Kelly, Kelly, Weger. If you also just Google my name, you can find me.
Okay, very good.
Don't use AI.
Not an AI Google search. Just a plain Google search.
Yes.
Good one. Good one. Good one. And that's Weger. She did spell that, but and Kelly is the Kelly. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Is there anything else that we did not touch on that you were like, I am just dying to just preach this?
Nothing really. I would just end by saying, we have so much opportunity to do little things to be softer on the planet, and don't judge if you struggle or your habit falls out of practice. That's okay. It's like anything else. We're constantly working on self-improvement. So just don't stop trying.
Stop trying. I love that. Okay. Kelly Weger, thank you so much. Thank you so much for responding to my outreach, and thank you so much for all that you are doing, that you've been doing, that you will continue to do for our Earth. So appreciate you.
Thank you so much. This has been a fun conversation. I appreciate it.